Hi, this is Alex. This video essentially aims to give you a tip on indenting code. Now, if you are experienced in programming and you already know how to indent code and you know why you should indent code blocks, then this video is not going to be for you. So, to save you a bit of time, I thought I'd give a little warning at the start of this video. So essentially this video is for the absolute beginner who maybe is starting PHP or has been writing PHP for a while and might have got some negative feedback on their code. Someone might have said the code was messy, hard to read. You might have even found it really hard to identify the line that an error might have occurred at. Or you might just be looking at your code and thinking, I don't understand what this does and I can't read it back properly and I don't know where things start and end. Then this is probably the video for you. But as I said, I just wanted to mention that anyone that's comfortable with writing code, this probably isn't for you. So, okay, assuming that you are a beginner, let's go ahead and take a look at just a very brief example of indenting code. So when I create an if statement, which obviously checks a condition for true or false, so for example, if 1 is equal to 2. Now 1's obviously not equal to 2, so this would return false, but that's beside the point of the video. Now most people would say, well, if something equals something and I need to do something with this, they'll just go ahead and say echo hello. Okay, very basic, pointless example. Now you might think that just by doing this is fine, it's readable, you understand what it does, you can see that we've got our if statement here, and we know that this code within the block outside executes or runs based on this condition. Now, fair enough, if you want to be lazy in the sense of, I won't bother if I've got a short file. Now, let's just say you were writing along, working on a project, and you had that viewpoint throughout the entire project. Your code is going to get very, very messy. It's not going to look nice. You might even be, and I've done it in the past, I'll admit this, but you might even be one of these people that don't even use code blocks at all. Okay, and you get this horrible, and I have done it in the past, but you get this horrible look like this. Now, it's not a good practice to get into. The best practice is whenever you create a block for anything, an if statement, a while loop, a for loop, a for each construct, anything, indent where necessary. Don't indent for the sake of it. I guess this video could go in the direction of why people do, this. I don't know. People could, for example, indent just where it's not necessary at all. But you look at some people's code sometimes and you think, well, this is an absolute mess, I can't understand it. One of the first steps of understanding code is making it look structured and logical. You need to make things look, let's just say we had, say, a load of nested if statements in here, okay? And an else if on here, and then an if within here, and then a while loop within here, and then a switch within here, for example. I don't know, your code could look like this. Now, just how it looks at the moment is slightly more complicated than the basic example I've given, but we've got so many nested elements here. Probably not good for practice, but if you are writing code like this, then that's fair enough. Now, my text editor luckily highlights the blocks. If you've noticed, I'm clicking next to these blocks here. They're highlighting when a block starts, so all of this, and when it ends here. So I automatically know, without even having to count any opening or closing curly brackets, that I can just go ahead and highlight that entire segment there, and I know that's one block. So my text editor is helping me out here, but the fact I'm indenting, if someone might not be using my text editor. We might send this file to someone else and they might open it in Notepad for all we know. They're not going to understand this code, or you might paste it online or in a forum or anywhere. People aren't going to understand your code as well as you are from your perspective. So it's important that you indent. You can rely on fancy features like this, but when, like I said, when you pass it to someone else, it's not going to have the same effect. So I know that if I get an error say unexpected end of file reached or something, I know that it might have been because I haven't closed a curly bracket. And if I remove this curly bracket, we can already see that, you know, we've got this end of our if here, we've got an else if, and then where's this ending? That's certainly not it. That's the start of our if statement up here. So we know, oh, we can, you know, pop a bracket in there. And, you know, if you're writing code like this and you're passing it on to other people to help you, you need to understand that other people cannot help you, or it's extremely hard to help someone if they haven't properly indented their code. It is the hardest thing. Let me just go ahead and just unindent all of this, okay? Look at that. Now, how much more beautiful does it look when it's, you know, out here like that? If someone comes to you with a load of code like that and says, I've got an error on line 200 and you've got 300 lines in a file and everything's like this, or some things are indented and some things aren't, and I have genuinely seen code that looks like this. Obviously not this, because this doesn't do anything, but I've seen code that's so poorly indented, I just tend to think that people chop blocks of it and, oops, I've enlarged my text editor, people just, you know, grab blocks of it and indent it for the sake of it. It's really important that while you're writing code, you're using a good text editor that allows you to indent well, and that you indent, you know, as you're writing code. If you want to go ahead and write a file, say 100-line file without indenting, go back and indent it, that's fine. You know, as long as you are passing your code on to someone else and it's properly indented, it makes it so much easier to read. People definitely underestimate the requirement to indent code. Another thing as well that people do is they use the space key to indent characters. So for example, let's just get this back to how it was before. In fact, let's go ahead and just pop it back like this. Let's just say you wanted to go ahead and indent, say, anything within here. I could use 2 spaces, for example. Now, first of all, this is slow. Second of all, it is terrible practice, because what we're actually doing is we're adding white space to a file. You'll notice that a tab is actually a character in itself, if you like. It gives it a specific amount of space, and a tab's classed as a character. On your keyboard, the tab key is there. That's why it's there. You know, if we didn't need to tab things, we would just use spaces, and we wouldn't tab key wouldn't exist. So using spaces is a massive no-no. Adding white space to your files, particularly when it's things like browser, things like HTML or CSS, using the space key is, you know, terrible, because you're adding more and more white space there, particularly with things like CSS and HTML. Your browser's picking up on that as valid characters, whereas, you know, 4 spaces could look the same as a tab, but a tab is just 1 character. So you're getting faster processing time. So we're not just relating this to PHP. You know, we're looking at everything else as well. PHP will read everything in a different way, so you know, this doesn't matter too much, but still, for readability, if someone else wanted to go in and modify your code somehow and they found that you tabbed in with loads of spaces, you know, it's very annoying. It annoys people, and a tab's easier to go back and forward rather than you know, 4 or 5 spaces. So that's just a quick tip about indenting. Like, as I said, a very basic video, but you know, it's one of them things that if you get right from the beginning and you get into the good habit of doing, then your code's going to look a lot better. It's going to be a lot easier for people to help you when they look at your code. If you're working, say, 2 or 3, 4 people, even more, you know, hundreds, whatever, people on a project, and people are poorly indenting things, it annoys everyone else. It doesn't look good, and it makes it a lot harder to maintain a project. So always indent. Take into account some of the tips that I've given. If you have any, you know, problems with your code, you know, you're going to get a solution a lot easier if you have readable code. Readable code is perfect. Some people don't think so because everything's server-side processed. It doesn't matter, but in actual fact, your code, you know, needs to be readable. But there we go. That's it. That's a little tip on indenting in PHP.